What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Red Zone Sports here. We are in the home stretch before the NFL season, and football is back in general. Man, I think college football opens up in less than 2 months. NFL, we've got training camp opening up in a few weeks. We have, training camp, preseason games, and then it's off and running, baby. Before we get started, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe if you like the content. If not, drop me a comment. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you don't like my face, whatever. But I wanted to talk about today because the off season is long. And when that off season starts to get to the dog days of summer, as we all know, I feel like there's just 9,000 narratives that pop up, made up stories, hypothetical trades, like you name it, it's out there. And one of the things that I did want to talk about is I'm overly pessimistic usually. Maybe it's because the 49ers haven't actually won a Super Bowl in 30 years. And everybody seems to pretend like they're the cream of the crop and they are the ones that set the standard for the NFL. So I tend to always push back a little bit when I hear people being a little bit too fanboyish on the team and the organization. But I want to start things off on a positive note here. Heading into training camp, I do think this team is set up pretty well. You know, you hear everybody talk about the schedule. I personally don't ever like doing that. The reasoning is there's more parity in the NFL than any other major sport. Every year you see a handful of teams that were playoff teams last year fail to make the playoffs. And then you see a handful of teams that were maybe below average or downright bad last year get a new coach, crush the draft, make a key free agent signings, and they're in the playoffs. Like, it happens every single year. So I don't always want to say like, oh, wow, this schedule is going to be a cakewalk, because who knows? You know, you get an Atlanta Falcons, let's say, on the schedule. Last year, they were not a playoff team. This year, they could be, 13-4, whatever it is. You know, Michael Penix is the dude. Bijan's coming into his own, second year in the system. Like, who knows, right? So I never want to be too pessimistic or optimistic based on schedule, because it does change a lot year to year. And the teams, again, that were bad last year are not going to be bad this year, so on and so forth. But I do think there are a few key points heading into this year for the San Francisco 49ers that are really important for them if they want to have success. And most of all, in my opinion, it's Super Bowl or bust always with this team. That's the expectation and the standard that has been set inside of that building. And let's face it, like, the core of this team is starting to get to the tail end. Not to say that they can't, reignite kind of things over there and continue the run that they've had, under Shanahan. And, maybe they move on from some veterans and some guys that were key pieces for the first initial run of this, and they revive themselves. But for this initial kind of Kyle Shanahan era, they're starting to get to the tail end of things. And I don't think, if you're being objective, that you can disagree with that. So for me, there's 5 things that the Niners need to do this season to win the Super Bowl, to put themselves in position to actually bring home that trophy, which will be handed to them, hopefully in their home stadium, which would be pretty freaking sweet if you ask me. But key number 1, they got to stay healthy. When you look at, the Shanahan era, I mean, they've got, 3 seasons, I think there is, where it's just been Armageddon. A couple years ago when they lost Jimmy G, they lost Bosa, everything, the whole season crumbled. Last year, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They ran into some horrible luck. Now, I will say the one thing that I continue to push back on is, yes, injuries can be bad luck, but if it happens every year and it happens to certain guys every year, it's not luck, it's a trend. And the other piece of that is they are, again, some of these core, very important pieces to the Niners are starting to get to kind of the tail end of their prime. Trent Williams, late 30s, right? He has missed games every season for the last couple of years. He's got to stay healthy. And that's concerning. He's getting older. Like, he's not getting younger. Father Time is undefeated. Trent's got to stay healthy. Fred Warner, peak of his powers, gets a chip in his ankle. The guy who was on a defensive MVP run in the first couple games of the season still played at a pretty high level, but it wasn't the same. Like, that sucks. McCaffrey, obviously, we were hearing that he was sore and some things leading up to the game one, and then all of a sudden he's inactive and bam, season derailed. So, you look at that. Parasol, I know that was really unfortunate like off season, but he's hurt again. He missed, OTAs, right, with a hamstring. He's got to stay healthy. We need Ayuk to come back and produce and be the same player he was before, shredding his knee. Bosa's got to stay healthy. Lenore's got to stay healthy. It's just up and down the roster, man. Like, there is a lot of guys that are very important to this team, once again, that are a year older, so it's not going to get easier, and they need to stay healthy because this team is very dependent on the top 10, 12 guys on the roster. Someone like a George Kittle, right? Like, amazing season, first ballot Hall of Famer, I think, in my opinion. Maybe he needs another year to do it and like solidify his spot there. But the way he plays, like, knock on wood, I love George Kittle. But, man, how much beating can a body take, right? So that's why I say they got to stay healthy, and it's now or never. They got to get it done this year, in my opinion. So staying healthy is key number one. Shouldn't need to be talked about, but here we are. The next one, young guys need to step up. I think they had a pretty good draft class last year. Garendo, Renardo Green, Pooney, Mustafa, two of those guys are injured, right? So already, like, going into the season, they not only need to stay healthy as well, they need to step up. They need all those guys to produce. J.R. Brown, like, it's now or never, buddy. Like, Salah's back in the house. You're going to get, there's no excuses for bad coaching now. It's time to, become the player that they initially drafted you to be, which was, that counterpart. Well, obviously he was drafted after, but go be Malik Mustafa's counterpart at safety. Renardo Green, Lenore needs a running mate. Like, they are counting on you, buddy, to be a top flight corner in this defense. Pooney, continue to build off of last season, solidify the interior of that offensive line. Super important. Garendo, like, needs to contribute. We all talked about McCaffrey needing to stay healthy. I don't think they can bank on him for, 250 touches, 300 touches this year. Should sure be great to be able to utilize him in a lot of spots and take that load off of CMC and keep him healthy, hopefully, for the stretch run. Then you look at this year's draft class, Collins, CJ West, like, dude, those guys got to produce, and they got to produce fast. The good thing, in my opinion, Collins, Mikael Williams, CJ West, like, dude, those guys played a lot of college football, and most of them at a very high level, right? Collins, multiple-year starter at Texas. Mikael, multiple-year starter at Georgia. Two of the best programs in college football, especially on the defensive end. Those guys should be tailor-made, ready to rock and roll if they're healthy, which, again, going back to point number one, they need to be healthy. Jordan James, right? Like, produced at Oregon, was in the playoff. Like, dude should come in and be able to play and contribute right away. So these young guys, I think what's critical for the Niners especially is not only they're very top heavy, right, in terms of cap. So they've had to go younger in a lot of spots, but their draft class finally addressed a lot of needs, and they didn't make a lot of free agency moves here. So these young players are going to need to contribute in a big way early on. These guys that were drafted last year and this year, it's going to be absolutely crucial for this team to get to where they want to go. Is these guys gotta pan out. They gotta work out. They gotta, come in, contribute, and be elite players and complement the guys like Warner and Bosa. They gotta, complement Lenore and Kittle and McCaffrey and Trent and all these guys. So super important that the young guys step up and contribute and play at a very high level this year if the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl. Next up, this one might be a little controversial because, again, injuries and a lot of things that kind of just went wrong last year. But it comes down to Kyle Shanahan kind of rediscovering and finding his bag again. When they went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, you would turn on games. I vividly remember them playing like the Panthers or, when they play the Packers in that playoff game. And, Kyle's script was just dialed, man. Like, right out of the gates, it was like watching, Iron Mike back in the day in the boxing ring. Like, get in, left, right, haymaker, good night, 7-0. And then, bam, defense holds up, bam, touchdown, 14-0. And it was like, dude, Kyle, whatever he saw on film, like just came out and absolutely cold cocked these guys. That's the Kyle that needs to return if this team's going to get to where they want to go. The whole philosophy of this team is to get ahead and get leads, run the ball, control the clock, control the game, and let that defense pin their ears back and go get the quarterback. That formula was completely turned upside down last year, obviously, very early on. They need to return and get back to it. Let Purdy cook in the play action game. But I think Kyle needs to kind of rediscover that fire and that fight again, and that kind of, take no prisoners mentality where, yeah, we're coming out here today to win like 13-10. Or I'm sorry, 30-10, not 13-10. But come out and like pummel teams, right? Make a statement. Get these veterans kind of on easy street a little bit where they can coast and kind of seal games up. Let them do that. Last year, there was just too many games where it was so close, one-score games all the way through. And, man, you just get beat up and worn down playing in those kinds of games. So Kyle returning, kind of getting his bag back. He's got his full arsenal for the most part, minus Ayuk going into the year. He's got a lot of younger guys, Watkins, Jacob Cowing, Garendo. Like he's got weapons, man. He's got dudes. I'm very interested to see how Kyle kind of comes out and deploys those young guys. Hopefully trust them. And let's see if Kyle can kind of reinvent this offense a little bit and kind of get back to the roots of, yeah, we're coming downhill right at you and we're going to dominate this game. That's what I want to see from Kyle Shanahan. Next up, number 4, Robert Saleh being back in the building is massive. I think for Saleh, the one thing that's going to be critical is he's had a lot of really good defenses these last few years. The biggest thing, though, is he's had a lot of veteran teams, right? This is going to be a very, very young defense, especially. We just talked about it. I mean, you're talking potentially 3 rookie defensive linemen that are going to start for this team. You're talking about at least probably 1 linebacker. If not, you're going to have, Martin competing with Winters. Like those guys are both pretty young. Renardo Green at corner. You're going to have potentially a rookie, nickelback, potentially a rookie safety. Like this defense is really young. I think for Saleh, the biggest things that I'd love to see for him is really simplify things and let them be aggressive. Let them use what was my biggest criticism these last couple of years is they looked old, they looked slow, they were not dynamic. I'd love to see Saleh kind of get back to like the early days of when he took that Seattle defense and reinvented it here. And kind of back to the Legion of Boom and what Seattle used to do, which was, look, we're young, we're fast and aggressive. We're going to play pretty simple, basic here, and we're coming at you. Like we're going to let everything go in front of us, and we're going to swarm, and we are going to knock the what out of you. I think that's what Saleh is going to try to get back to here, and I hope that's the case. When you get to the NFL level, overcomplicated systems for young teams and young defenses is not the mix that you want. So I imagine that they are going to get a little bit more simplified in their approach and pull the training wheels off these guys and let them attack. So I think if Saleh does that, I think this defense can be one of the better units in the league. No doubt about it. They've got the talent. It's just going to be a matter of communication and if this defense can kind of gel early on. And I'm really curious to see how that works out. And then 5th, there's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of people on both sides of the house when it comes to Brock Purdy. There's no doubt anymore that obviously he's the guy. He is the tip of the spear of the franchise. He is the high-paid quarterback in the building. He's not a rookie anymore. He's played in a Super Bowl and played pretty well. He's got the numbers to back up his efficiency and how well he can kind of operate an offense. In my opinion, in order to win a Super Bowl, Brock needs to take the next step. And what I mean by that is when the game is tight or, the team is maybe struggling or just dragging in one day or things go wrong, right? They throw, fumble, other team gets it. They're up 10 points here in the second. And it's like, oh no, are things going to snowball here and kind of pull away from us and we're going to fall behind? Like, I don't need Brock to be Superman out there, but there's a reason why guys like Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, those guys are like pretty widely regarded as the top tier. And it's because any given day when their team needs it, they put the team on the back of their shoulders and they can just grind games out, or they can just take over, right? Like, can you make a play? Can you scramble away from a defender, and hit an open receiver kind of in a non-scripted play and move the chains and keep things going, right? I know, again, it's a team sport. You need guys to get open. I mean, the Lombardis of the world went on and on about like, well, he's got one of the worst like separation rates for receivers. Like, dude, no one says things like that about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, they just don't. Like, go look at the conversations around him. It's, oh my God, did you just see what he did? Like, I know Brock doesn't have that kind of raw talent, but I firmly believe if this team and organization is going to win a ring, with Brock, it's going to take some performances where people go, damn, like that guy can play. That guy took over that game and there was no stopping him, and he pretty much willed them to win. That's what it takes in the NFL. Like, I'm sorry, like, go look at the Super Bowl winners outside of a few outliers and go see how they play. Like, that's the conversation. That's the proof in the pudding. Even guys like back in the day, like a lot of people don't regard Eli Manning as like one of the best quarterbacks ever. But man, those 2 playoff runs when he got hot and won rings, he was unstoppable. Like, I saw it firsthand in that Niner, NFC Championship game. Like, dude, yeah, you can blame Kyle Williams, and I will never forgive him for the rest of my life. But like, Eli was just, you could not put him down in that game. Like, Justin Smith, Alden, Patrick Willis, like, they blew him up a lot. And Eli just kept swinging. And then same against the Patriots. So it's going to take some monster performances. Welcome to being an elite athlete in the most competitive league in the world. It's going to take, Brock to put this team on his shoulders and get it done. Like, it's just the way it is. So I think those are the 5 things that are the most important for me heading into the season. I think if they can stay healthy, the young guys step up and handle their business. Kyle kind of gets back to Kyle. And, when he was in his bag, those Super Bowl runs, Saleh comes in, reinvigorates his defense, gets things simplified and back to attack mode, and Purdy takes the next step. I think this team can make some noise, guys. So that's all I got. I can't wait for training camp to open here in a few weeks. Once again, if you liked the video, hit that like, hit that subscribe. And if you didn't, or if you have any other ideas or thoughts, things you're looking for as we enter training camp, drop them in the comments below. And that's all I got.